Life Management Science Labs would like to acknowledge that we live and produce this podcast on the traditional lands of the Wurundjeri people. We'd also like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands of our listeners and our international colleagues. We'd like to pay our respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. Hi, and welcome to Self-Improvement Atlas, the Personal Science Insights podcast produced by LMSL, the Life Management Science Labs. We are champions of life management science, providing structured insights informed by science and inspired by practice on key aspects of conscious living. Each week, we bring you scientific and practical insights on each element with the expert knowledge of professionals in the field. I'm Marie Stella, your host from Melbourne, Australia. Let's start the show.
Welcome back to Self-Improvement Atlas, the Personal Science Insights podcast. Physical health is at the very center of personal growth. By all accounts, it offers a positive impact on one's mood, sleep, stress, energy levels, and mental health. So, in this episode, we're joined by fitness instructor Sarah Hentges, who is also a professor at University of Maine at Augusta. She has published on a myriad of topics, including her books. For example, Woman and Fitness in American Culture. As a fitness instructor, she teaches community yoga classes at the UMA Bangor campus, as well as dance and fitness classes at Bangor YMCA. On top of all this, she maintains a blog and website called Culture and Movement, encouraging readers to move and be moved. So, welcome to the show, Sarah.
Thank you.
How are you? How are you today?
Well. I'm doing well, thank you.
Actually, you are on the other side of the world, so I hope you're still okay.
Yes, I'm a night owl, so.
Okay, that's great because it's like early on here, so hopefully you're okay. And before we begin, tell us a little bit about your background and what sparked your interest in fitness and in instructing.
Okay. So I'm really an introvert. So being a professor and a fitness instructor seems like it's not the greatest fit. But as a teenager and a child, I played sports, and then I took like jazzercise classes and step classes with my mom.
Wow.
And so the last semester of college, I wanted to have some, marketable skills. So I took a fitness instructor training course and started to learn how to teach like classic dance aerobics, step aerobics, kickboxing, weightlifting kinds of classes. And I just really loved doing that. And so I continued to do that through graduate school and into my work as a professor as well.
That's really amazing because you tried on a lot of different types of fitness and exercises. And what would you say would be a common mistake or misconception you've heard about physical fitness?
I think that a lot of people think that physical fitness is just, like a chore or, something that we have to do to stay healthy. And I think that I really want people to know that fitness is a way of life and something that can be an enjoyable part of our lives. And it's definitely a mental, physical, spiritual endeavor.
So it's not just something that's physical, but it's also something that is spiritual as well. Okay. That's a really wonderful preface to our topic today. But before we get further into detail to the topic, we'd like to get to know you better. And this is Have You Met Sarah? Okay, so what is your favorite book, Sarah?
My favorite book. So I'm a pretty voracious reader, so it's really hard to say just one book because I do love to read, and I love to always have a fiction book, a novel that I'm reading in addition to nonfiction. So in terms of my favorite book, I have to have like a general category of like anything and everything that Octavia Butler wrote. I've read all of her books. Multiple times. And she writes science fiction, fantasy, speculative fiction, dystopia. Young adult dystopia is like my favorite genre.
So like Divergent and Hunger Games and, all
Yes.
those.
And
I
so
think
much
we can
more.
be friends. Yeah,
Yes.
I loved, when I was in high school and middle school, I also loved reading dystopian like books. Like that's just like my food during lunch.
You get it. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, it's like an escape, even though it's like dystopian. Yeah. Okay. What about movies? Are there any movies that you have enjoyed recently, or maybe a movie that you'd like to recommend to us?
So I tend to watch more TV shows or limited series, but in terms of one of my favorite kind of recent movies, which I'm never really cutting edge, so it's probably not that recent, but Everything Everywhere All at Once is one of my most favorite recent
Ah, I
films.
actually haven't watched it at all
Oh,
yet. Yeah, is it really that good? Because I
it,
heard reviews about it.
yeah, it's
It
really good. It's
is.
very, if you like dystopian, books, I think you would really like the film.
Oh, so it is dystopian, like Everything Everywhere All at Once.
I'd call it dystopian, yeah.
Oh, all right.
Sci-fi, fantasy, yeah.
Okay, that is in my genre. I do enjoy watching those. But okay, since we are making a podcast right now, are you listening to any podcasts at the moment, or just any recommendations of any podcasts?
Yeah, I was really dreading this question because I really have not gotten on the podcast train. So here I am doing a podcast, but I tend to not have a lot of extra time for listening, So, but I do enjoy, have enjoyed Andrew Huberman's podcast and his take on neuroscience, and really can
Ooh,
only say I watched like one or
neuroscience.
two.
That's all right. We can say that you enjoyed Andrew Hughes. Okay, last question for this section is that do you have two more questions actually. Do you have a role model?
I don't know. I don't really have like a role model. I draw inspiration from a lot of different sources and from a lot of different people. And a lot of my life and career, I've felt like I'm just kind of trying to figure my way through, things that I don't know how to do. But if I had a role model, I think Adrienne Marie Brown is like one of the coolest people that I've, read her books. And so I wouldn't say a role model, but very much influential. Bell Hooks, in terms of my academic work, has always been someone who's, again, been very influential. And always Octavia Butler as well, when I get a chance to mention her multiple times.
Actually have heard her name a few times, and like I've never read her books, but I do heard recommendations about her. And last question would be, since you are someone who's very academically inclined and you have learned and become someone who has a PhD, is there a course that has inspired you and changed, changed the course of your life, or just like blow your mind?
In terms of academia, I think finding American Studies was definitely something that helped me to kind of figure out the interdisciplinary, transdisciplinary kind of approach to different topics. But in terms of like an online course, more recent, the Embody Lab and their Embody Social Justice Certificate Program was a course that I really, really enjoyed and really just brought together my work in academia with fitness and my social justice interests all together with the body. So that was a very enriching course to take.
That does sound quite enriching because it combines both, the enrichment of your body and like, the social justice area. Okay, let's now deep dive. Now let's start a bit slow about, personal development and fitness. So first of all, how would you define like personal development, just like according to you?
Yeah. So I think that there's a lot of different ways that we can define personal development, but I really think of it as a holistic approach to self-exploration that maybe ebbs and flows over our life. It might be working toward a particular kind of goal, but I think it's really coming to terms with who we are and what we need and what we want and who we want to be and how we can share our gifts with the the world. I think personal development is also very much about that mind, body, spirit connection and really exploring all of those different aspects. And really thinking about how our nervous system functions and understanding what we consume, whether that's food and drink or images and media, how that impacts our minds and our bodies. And really understanding our inner landscape as well as how we connect with and complement other people in our lives and in our communities.
I see. So it's not just, basically exercise and taking proper care of your nutrition intake, but it's also including the social, like our social capabilities and how we interact with other people as well, also incorporates into, the personal development area.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. So, since you did say that it does have some correlation with our society and our social relationships, how would you describe the relationship between fitness and personal development?
I think that, again, there's a lot of different ways to define fitness. And so the way that I think about fitness is probably a little bit different than how most people think about fitness or kind of the mainstream ideas of fitness. So when I think about fitness, it's for me really about the ability to do the things that we have to do in our lives, but then still have energy left over to do the things that we really want to do in our lives. Um, that kind of stamina and energy and fitness, I think, is also very much about having balance in our lives, whether that's a balance between, again, the have tos and the want tos, or a balance between our work life and our social life, or what we love to do outside of work as well.
I see. So it's like increasing our own stamina as well to, like in the future, we have more energy to do other things outside of like exercise and work and sleep.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. So, in what ways does physical activity contribute to self empowerment?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think in so many ways it does, in every way it really does. And so when we think about as our bodies become stronger and our sense of self becomes stronger, we're more confident in our abilities and in ourselves. And I think a lot of times we think about, for instance, like weightlifting, right? And we lift weights, we feel stronger. And I think that sense of strength can come from, building our muscles through weightlifting, but it also can come from a lot of other kinds of physical fitness activities as well. So like for me, yoga and dance are really the things that make me feel strong, again, like mentally and physically. And so the more that I feel in my body and I feel capable in those realms, the more I have that sense of empowerment and the ability to connect with other people and to do the kinds of things that I love and be supported in that kind of fitness community.
I see. So, what type of dance do you actually enjoy recently?
Yeah. So when I started my fitness journey, it was really like old school aerobics, like Jane Fonda activity. But and I've taught a lot of different kinds of dance. Like I've taught cardio belly dancing and a program, a MOSA program called Group Groove, which is a choreographed fitness dance. It's kind of like Zumba. But yeah, Zumba's very popular. So I think it's fun and it helps us to just kind of be in our bodies having fun, and it has, energizing music. But lately I've really been pursuing more of a kind of guided dance. I trained in 2022 as a journey dance guide and facilitator. So that's something that I teach regularly now. And journey dance is much different. There's no choreography, there's no moves to learn. It's really about connecting with yourself and with the music and going through kind of different process work. And I've really been enjoying that kind of dance lately.
See. So, like something that's more choreographed, but like more simple, similar to Zumba, like from what we know.
Yeah, it's really it's more guidance rather than like like guidance about possibilities and choice rather than the particular steps. I will say I still do really love, I choreograph my own dance fitness classes. So I do still really love the choreography and the delivering that choreography and experiencing that with other people is still very joyful for me.
I also, I too love dancing because, it just like creates joy within us.
Absolutely.
So we did talk about your recent fitness journey, but what inspired you to begin your fitness journey and how has it evolved over time?
Yeah, that's a hard question. I think in terms of the inspiration, being in academia, being someone who loves to read, I can just be a bookworm. I can sink into my favorite chair with my cat and my favorite book and like never want to leave the house, right? And so part of that inspiration, I think, is like you said, the joy in moving our bodies, right? And so I spend a lot of time on the computer. I spend a lot of time, reading and grading and writing and doing these things that can be embodied but aren't necessarily always embodied. And so being able to have that balance of, working in a field where I'm using my mind a lot to be able to complement that with being able to move my body in those ways. So that's part of what inspired me, being throughout my life being, like quote unquote fat, right? Thinking that I'm fat. A lot of that fitness journey was about burning calories and, staying fit and being driven by those more kind of superficial concerns and things like that. And so as the journey has progressed, it's become a lot less about, worrying about weight or worrying about the numbers on the scale or anything like that, right? And it's been just really how good it feels to move and how good it feels to be able to move my body every day and again complement that very sedentary kind of work life that I tend to have.
I agree, especially, as girls, we are put into a certain level, like a certain standard where we have to be skinny and be beautiful at all stages of our lives. And that really impacted on our journey in life and how we see food and how we portray exercise in our body. So I found it like really wonderful how you have found this journey, not from just like from the superficial side of it, just like, looks, weights, which is a plus, when you lose weight and like be someone who's fitter, which is great. But like the more important stuff here is that we feel better about ourselves in terms of our bodily functions and that we get stronger and we can, function better and that we can, do more activities, do more range of activities as we get older. Because I know that if we don't really do exercises, our body gets, weak, especially if we are, as you said, live in a sedentary world or sedentary work,
Yeah, absolutely. And to that, I think it's kind of funny because the times in my life when I have been successful in losing weight has never been through that fitness pursuit. I mean, I'm sure that fitness maintains a lot, but like the times that I have lost weight, it's been like either I'm going through something in my life that's very stressful, and so I eat less, right? Or engaging in, like whatever kind of diet fad, right? Thinking that that's and having it be like a very unhealthy way to lose weight. So yeah, I think really focusing on how that exercise makes us feel, right? And doing things that we enjoy doing and not feeling like we have to, get on the treadmill or the stair stepper or something just to burn those calories and just to maintain that body.
I agree very much because I also am someone who struggles with like losing weight and like I want to look a certain way, and that what you said was right, that the fact that when I did lose weight it was not because of like the exercises and the nutrition that I did and I feel like weight loss and like losing just to fit in the eye of the world, it is something that is not quite good to our mindset as well, because we are just trying to lose it just to look good. But yeah, so what role do you think does mental health play in your fitness routine?
I think that maintenance of mental health through dance, movement, yoga, right, is so key and is so important. And it's hard, especially I think in the world that we live in today, to keep a positive outlook, right, and to not just be fearful of the future all the time. And so I think it's important because when we have that regular activity in our lives, right, we have that regular movement, fitness, whatever we're calling it, that it helps to keep us on a kind of like an even keel, right? So it's like this baseline where we kind of go up and down, but it's not like these extremes of up and down with that baseline. And so having that healthy outlet for stress that we get through exercise, the serotonin and endorphins that are released through exercise, I think all of those things help us to keep that healthy mental outlook on life.
Okay, wonderful. So since we did talk a lot about exercises, I'd like to ask you, what advice would you give to someone hesitant to take the first step towards fitness, or maybe just someone who has been procrastinating a lot to just start doing fitness? Because it seems intimidating, for people who has been struggling with starting exercise, because we see like on social media all these people who are fit at the gym, like on the side of the road, they're just like already fit. But like as people who just wanted to start, we just, some people are just not comfortable to start. So what kind of advice would you give to people?
Well, I think first, you're absolutely right that I think so many people have this idea that they have to have, like a certain level of fitness before they can start to do fitness, right? Which of course is so counterintuitive to,
Indeed.
like you have to have a starting point, right? And I think that so many people have so many different kinds of fears, like fears of, I think a lot of people are like, oh, well, I don't want to be around people, right? Like I don't want to move my body around people. I don't want to be in this space. And so I guess one piece of advice, which I've kind of already said already, is that, finding something that you enjoy, finding something, a way to move your body and to connect your mind and body that's joyful. I think that helps. And then I think also, it's so hard to start, but I think that once you start and once you make it a regular part of your life and start to change your habits and replace, old habits with the new habits of exercise, fitness, whatever that might be, it gets easier. I think also having a friend or, someone who can help to keep you accountable, or someone who can show up, for instance, to group fitness kinds of spaces. It always helps to have a friend to do that with. And I think also recognizing that the fears that we have are probably very similar to the fears that other people in these spaces have as well. Like everyone's always worried that everyone's looking at me, everyone's judging me. It's like everybody's so worried about being looked at and being judged that no one's, looking or judging, right? We're really worried about ourselves first and foremost. So it's hard to get over those myths. It's hard to get over those fears. But I think that, again, like starting is the hardest thing. And I do think that once we feel those benefits of the fitness activities that we're doing, it's easier to continue them and sustain them. And once we start to see results, not getting frustrated if things aren't happening as fast as we would like them to be. Like it takes patience to change, whether that's, physical or mental or whatever that kind of change is, right? It takes time, it takes patience, it takes really changing a lot of other factors as well. And so just stepping out of that that space of fear, I think is so important.
See, so that's a lot of tips for a beginner, but I'd like to go back on the part where you said that how having a friend, how having someone else to be a part of your, workout routine, your exercises can help keep our motivation to, stay up in the spectrum, I'd say. And what do you think can the fitness communities do to support this change? Because these individuals, they need help in keeping the motivations. So I believe that these friends are part of the fitness communities as well, and the fitness communities at large. What can they do to support this change and foster a sense of belonging and support?
Mhm. So I think having opportunities for people to connect with each other outside of the physical activities are really important. So perhaps spaces where people can talk informally, who connect around not only what they're doing physically, but other things in their lives. And I think also a lot of that support comes with the biggest challenges that people have, right? So, for instance, challenges with childcare or transportation or whatever those things might be. So, having systems in place that might help people to have childcare so that they can attend a class, for instance, or having a carpool so that people can go together, right? Having accountability partners that can check in on each other. I know a lot of times in group fitness, we'll see the same people. And so someone will say like, oh, where's so-and-so? And so if we have a way to contact and connect with people so that we can see what's going on when someone doesn't come, I think a lot of times that kind of support and motivation comes around like competition and around goals, which is not necessarily a bad thing. But I think that that kind of competition could be framed in different kinds of ways. So maybe it's not how much weight you lost, right? Or how much you can lift, maybe it's more around consistency. How many times have you come to class, or how many times have you done an activity without missing a class or missing out on that activity? I think sometimes the belonging and support that fitness spaces do create can also be problematic. Like it can become kind of like cultish or kind of like a club or special membership. And I think that can help with a sense of belonging, but I think that also is a barrier to a lot of people finding their way into that space. Because if you're already nervous about starting a fitness program or something, and then you come into the space, and I think people imagine like, oh, everybody knows what they're doing and everybody's already there and everybody's fit and all of those things. And so, yeah, exactly. And so sometimes I think that kind of club aspect, right, it helps people feel like they belong, but then how do new people break into that space? And it can be even more intimidating and even more difficult. So having perhaps finding ways for people to try something out with low stakes or, something like that, I think can help with that support and connection as well.
I agree, especially, like trials at the gyms and just something that you can walk into without any prejudice. Because people who wanted to start, they just want to move their body initially. And I do agree that certain kinds of exclusivity exclude some kind of people, like in terms of they are welcomed in, but they feel excluded in terms of, oh, how everyone is doing well, how everyone is already fit, and I am not yet there. Am I like, do I belong in this space? And the fact that you did mention that is wonderful, because I do feel like that sometimes when I go to the gym. And why is everyone so fit already? Where is the in between people?
Absolutely. I know sometimes like, I actually don't teach at the YMCA anymore. And when I did, like, I did love that there were so many different kinds of people and all ages. But, when I would look around the group of people in the classes that I was teaching, it was like, all of these people or most of these people are already fit. They're already thin, and so when someone comes in and they're not fitting that body type, or they don't pick up the moves as quickly or something like that, right? That it can be really hard to want to come back to that space. Like, I think it's so commendable that people even stick it out, sometimes in a class or in an activity, because there are so many pressures, whether they're imagined or real, in terms of keeping people out of those spaces or pushing them out of those spaces.
Yeah, especially when some people, they want is just starting the consistency level of just exercise, because that's the most important thing about exercise, is the consistency, not the duration that you do like in a single time. Of course that's important, but if you only do that once a month, it's not going to do anything to your body. And I like that we are talking about how even us as, like, human beings with 2 legs, 2 arms, normal moving human beings are having issues in, just going to the gym and exercising. What do you think? What role do accessibility and affordability play in promoting physical activity? Because I feel like I'm someone who can still walk on my 2 legs, and someone who can, see well, someone who can move well. And not a lot of people think about the role of accessibility and affordability. What do you think it plays in promoting physical activity?
Yeah, absolutely. I think accessibility and affordability are two huge things, right? And so, for instance, I opened up a space in downtown Bangor, Maine, where I live, and I never thought I would open a space. Like, I just didn't think that was a possibility. So it was kind of a dream come true. But it's on the 4th floor of an old historical building that doesn't have an elevator, right? And so I really that bothers me a lot, right? Like, I really want to have my programs be accessible, but there's so many people that say, like, well, I can't climb that 4 flights of stairs. And of course, not everybody can make it up the stairs, right? So having, we try to have Zoom options to increase accessibility. But I think, like you said, I think that perception of not fitting in, right, is one barrier to accessibility, right? And then, of course, disabilities are a barrier to accessibility, whether that's not being able to access the space, or not having the proper equipment, right, or something like that, which also I think connects into affordability as well. So I try to offer, like, sliding scale and pay what you can and scholarships in order to help affordability. But I think also sometimes affordability is a barrier that is an imagined barrier. Like, you know, fitness pursuits can be expensive, and some are more expensive than others. But I think that we don't always prioritize our own selves and our own needs. And so we prioritize, other things, that we spend money on other things that we don't really think about, right? Like the daily coffee, or alcohol, or going out to eat, or having food delivered, or whatever those things are, right? And that's a lot of money that we spend on those things. And so, like, shifting our mindset, right, in terms of, like, how we value our health and our wellness, and are there ways that we can make those shifts? Of course, again, recognizing that there are a lot of barriers in terms of affordability and accessibility, even for online offerings, even for free offerings. Like, I love how much free content there is available online right now. Of course, it's free if you have internet access and a phone, or like whatever that might be. But even when there is that free access or that online access, we still go back to those barriers of fear and shame and all of those kinds of things that get in the way as well.
Yes, as well as, just simply the sense of belonging, because sometimes you just want to come in and join and be a part of the community, so that you can come again and again and again and again, and become consistent in working out and making your body feel better. How do you think fitness can raise awareness for health disparities in undeserved communities? So, for example, people who are not in a well socioeconomic place, or just people with health disparities, such as maybe people with one leg, people who have disabilities.
Mhm. So I think that it also kind of comes back to the idea of fitness that we have, right? And so a lot of times fitness has been used as a way um, of making people feel less than, right? And so like if you don't fit into these kind of mainstream ideas of what fitness is, it's going to be really hard to want to be a part of that, right? And so the concept of fitness also in terms of like better bodies, right? Or eugenics, the eugenics movement, sorting people out by their fitness levels, right? Or by the way that they fit these kind of mainstream standards. I think also in terms of taking a holistic look, right? Again, it's not just our physical bodies. It's not just, the number of push-ups that we can do or like whatever that might be, or the spaces that we can access, right? It's all of those different aspects that come together. And so if you live in a food desert where you can only get your food at a convenience store and you can't get fresh vegetables or, healthy foods, you lack that access, right? And so you lack one of those aspects that relate to fitness. And so I think as we think about what fitness is and we think about that imagined norm, right, of like what people should be able to do, how they should be able to move, and go kind of back to that original definition of fitness that I shared in terms of being able to do what we need to do, but then also having enough energy and stamina left over for the things that we want to do. And so there's a lot of people who are unable to participate in things that they have to do, right? Let alone the things that they want to do. And a lot of times that's going to be around illness and disability and having enough so-called spoons to be able to do the things that we need to do. So in terms of kind of bringing attention to that is looking at the systems and the structures that need to change in order to make fitness or make opportunities for movement more accessible to more people, I think is a really important aspect of that. So I think in terms of what it brings attention to is the larger disparities in our lives and in our world that keep people from being able to access the food, medicine, education, housing, all of those kinds of things that can help people to be healthy and
I agree. 100%. And Sarah, as we are living in the 21st century, we are, of course, bound to our social media. And what do you think is the role? What role does social media play in promoting fitness-related activism? Like, for example, charity runs and Sweat for a Cause and inclusive fitness programs.
Mhm.
Like in promoting those activities, like social media, like Instagram and Facebook. What does it do in promoting fitness-related activism?
I think like we touched on earlier, a lot of times social media gives this perception of like perfection and
Yeah.
beauty and, those kinds of aspects of fitness. And so
Yes.
there's that part of it, right? Like we can get, kind of down on ourselves when we start scrolling through and there's all these like amazing bodies and amazing feats of strength and all of that. So I think that it does have some mental health, some damaging effects to mental health, right?
Indeed.
And I think that in
100%.
terms of the examples that you shared there, I think it's interesting because, I think it's important to give to the causes that we believe in, right? Or that the causes that we want to support. But I also think that sometimes it kind of gives us this out, right? It's like, well, here's this easy way. Like I already like to run, so I'm going to run this 5K and this is going to help this particular charity, right? And so it kind of can be like a substitution for, really participating in those communities of change, right? That we can give in other kinds of ways. And so sometimes I think that, it's like, well, I've already done my good deed by participating in this particular like activity for this charity. But that's maybe me being a little bit cynical because, it's good to raise awareness and it's good to have support for those things. And, perhaps people are contributing to supporting those causes in other ways, not just the kind of
The runs and the...
Yeah.
Because I do agree with you that there are runs that provides that raise awareness to the cause and they give money. Like, for example, you would need to pay a certain amount to join the charity run, and then that is where the charity comes from by doing what they actually already like. Okay, so we've talked a lot about something that's deeper, which is the social causes and just fitness in general, and how as beginners we can motivate and stay motivated in terms of fitness and self-development. Now let's talk about the future, and what do you think are the emerging trends in the fitness industry?
So like I mentioned earlier in our get to know, like I don't know that I'm ever, really into the emerging trends necessarily, but in terms of the future of fitness, I think that a lot of the trends are kind of just new packages for what already exists, kind of like remarketing old kinds of myths and promises that are tapping into people's primal fears, like being accepted or being good enough. I think there's also a reinvestment in what's easy. Like we know that there are not quick fixes to health and
100%.
wellness and fitness, but we try to sell them all the time. And it's amazing, how many memes and videos have that kind of way of trying to catch you, like catch your insecurities, right? And like, here's this easy way to lose weight. Here's this easy way to gain strength and build muscle. Lose that belly in X amount of weeks, or you only need 7 minutes. The 7-minute routine will completely transform your body. Like these 13 exercises will do this. So I think that it's not necessarily an emerging trend, but it's a trend that doesn't seem to be going away at any time. I think also, again, not necessarily an emerging trend, because I wrote about this in my book, Women in Fitness and American Culture, which is like 10 years old by now. But I write about the rise of what I call manufactured fitness. And it's these programs that, like in terms of being a fitness instructor, when I trained as a fitness instructor, I learned transferable skills. So I mentioned that, list of all the different kinds of classes that I've taught, because I was taught like the basic skills that you need to teach. I was taught how to cue, how to sequence, how to choreograph, how to choose music, all of those kinds of things. And so now we have a lot of programs, like the program that I taught when I was teaching at the YMCA that I mentioned, called Group Groove, which is an excellent program. It's very well put together. It's very well produced. But these are programs that, as a fitness instructor, it's like you take the training, you're really taught to teach the brand more than anything else. So you're not taught, kind of basic skills about like anatomy and physiology and alignment and those kinds of things. Like you're taught, here's how we teach this particular, brand. Here's the kinds of things we want you to say. And then they give you the music, they give you the choreography. You have to pay, sometimes monthly or every 3 months for new choreography and new music. And then you memorize it and you deliver it. And so again, there's anything wrong with that. It helps to standardize, programs that are effective and are, perhaps better than what people might be delivering without that kind of training. So I think that's something that has continued to grow and is very different than, again, the way that I was trained how to be a fitness instructor. Or I mentioned Journey Dance, which is also, in a way, a fitness program, a mind-body kind of fitness program. But that training was not about necessarily like the brand. Like we learned how to teach the flow of Journey Dance, but it was kind of more like group therapy. Like there's a lot of exploration of ourselves, and we were taught the flow, we were taught the qualities, but we were also encouraged to make it our own, to bring our own like skills and passions to that work. And I think that's a very different kind of training.
I feel like you did answer the question by saying that the fitness industry has continuously created a cycle of repackaging old types of workouts, old types of, like Zumba, and then they renamed it and just like add some more movements to it and maybe repackage it into something else. So it's more like a marketing technique to sell these classes to consumers instead of like new things in the fitness industry itself. So
Exactly. I
that
think that's
is
well
hmm,
said. Yeah.
that's an interesting intake on that, and I do believe that uh as long as I live that, it does have a cycle to it, and this is something that I have done before and it's just a different name to it. I see. Yeah. And since we are living in a world filled with technology, especially after the pandemic, and as you mentioned that there are fitness classes on Zoom and there are free fitness classes online, what do you think, in what ways can technology be used to support, like as support for fitness endeavors, other than the Zoom classes and the fitness classes that we can see online? Just any types of technology, doesn't have to be something that's online.
Mhm. Yeah. So I think, obviously technology has a lot of benefits. I think it can be a way to support us, for some people having like trackable goals or, having a Fitbit or something like that that's going to track their steps or the heart rate or their sleep or whatever that might be. So that kind of technology certainly supports. I think that sometimes that helps us to become a little bit like too reliant on that technology, and that there's a lot of things that we can't measure through that kind of technology. But again, for some people, I think that can really help with consistency and accountability. I think that the the apps that have, for instance, like free content, but then also paid content. So, people can access a good amount, and then maybe again, like we're talking about, try something out that they might not have been able to try out. I think that's what another really good way that technology can support fitness as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially the Fitbit part. I feel like one of the best one of the best technologies that we have in the fitness industry is to have something that's wearable to track ourselves without making it inaccessible, because lately the prices have been going down and like a lot of people can wear that, a lot of people can use different types of wearable devices that can help you track your fitness levels and help you pursue your fitness goals without paying too much for it, because it's not just for fitness, because it's also a watch. Usually it's also like for notifications for your phones. And I feel like that is something that is quite innovative.
Absolutely. And even things like, um, being able to set something to remind you to take a break or remind you to take a breath or something like that. I think those are really great tools that can help all of us.
Okay, now let's go to practices and habits. And what do you think is a habit that you'd recommend practicing to support fitness for self-empowerment? Just maybe your habits or just habits in general.
Yeah, I mean, I think the habit itself is the most important, right? Like actually having something that we come back to and that we can come back to. So there's a couple things that I want to share, and so one is something that I've kind of adapted from Bo Forbes, and she calls it the 5 minute check-in, and it's really a way of pausing and noticing. So, for instance, pausing, bringing our feet to the earth, taking a few breaths, and then asking ourselves questions. And it can be 5 minutes, but the more that we practice it, the less that we need like that much time to check in, because it becomes easier. But we might just stop and we might just notice our breath, right? And we might ask questions just like, okay, am I breathing very shallow breaths, like up in the upper part of my chest? Is my Is my breath flowing easily? So we can ask those questions about our breath. And so part of the challenge is noticing and not necessarily trying to change it. So we can stop and notice, like, what's the level of my energy right now? Am I feeling energetic or am I feeling lethargic? We can stop and we can ask, like, how am I feeling physically right now, like generally, or are there certain parts of my body that feel tight, or there certain parts of my body that feel good? We can stop and we can ask, like, what's the state of my mind? Are my thoughts racing? Am I stuck on a thought? Are my thoughts free flowing? And what's my emotional state right now? How am I feeling in that way? And so just kind of pausing and doing that check-in. It might be a check-in that we do like before we do a fitness practice, and then coming back and doing that check-in after a fitness practice. But I think just that power of just pausing for a moment. Related to that, I think breathing is so important. And I think so few of us really even think about breathing. Like our bodies breathe for us, so we don't have to think about it. But when we really pay attention to our breath and we're more conscious about our breath, and so back to the shallow breath that's up in the upper part of our lungs, which is how most of us breathe, that kind of breathing can really lend itself to anxious thoughts, so to anxiety. And so, a lot of us are anxious all of the time. And so if we stop and notice that breath and then deepen that breath, that can really help us to slow down our mind and slow down our body, and to take that pause. But then as we deepen the breath, we're tapping into our parasympathetic nervous system. So we're, getting into that more rest and digest kind of nervous system state. As we're bringing that breath lower in the body, we can also help to just, expand the lungs and use up more of our lung capacity. So I think that check-in, that noticing of the breath, that shifting of the breath, just taking a pause for 3 deep reps, I think is also a practice that is really important to practice. And the last practice I want to share is actually from Journey Dance, and that's what's our embodiment section, but more generally grounding. So whether that's like feeling our feet on the earth, feeling our seat in the chair, feeling that connection to the earth, letting ourselves feel like gravity and the impacts of gravity. But in Journey Dance, my favorite part that we do is, we do a little bit of a welcome, and then we get down on the floor. And for several songs, the first song, we're seated on the floor and we're kind of moving and stretching to the music. And then we lie down on the floor and we actually roll around on the earth and find all the different ways that we can move on the earth. And then we come up to our hands and knees and we move our spines and awaken our spine and that energy of the spine. So that for me is that kind of grounding, that being on the earth, moving on the earth, I think is a practice that I really enjoy. And it was kind of a game changer when I started to do that. I think so few of us, get down on the floor and roll around. And that's something that's, again, 5 minutes, we can just be in our bodies on the earth, connecting with the earth, and even massaging out tension, like letting the earth be our personal massage therapist, right? So those are some of the practices that I think are really impactful.
As a theater kid, I like that you mentioned the part where we need to take a pause and take a deep breath, because sometimes we just unconsciously shift to our chest type of breathing, because diaphragm breathing is something that is highly encouraged in the theater world, and how it enhances your voice. And not just that, it enhances your stamina in the long term. So I really love that you mentioned that, as well as going back to nature and just connecting with the earth. So it is more to taking a step back and reflecting on what you did that day, and how to feel better in terms of your mental space, especially. And I feel like that is a space where the fitness industry at times fails to mention, because taking deep breaths and just connecting with nature is something that is also important, as well as, rest. and finding your peace within your fitness journey.
Absolutely.
All right, that's wonderful. I think that is all for the main questions that I have, the podcast session. And now I'd like to start with the open mic where Sarah can talk about anything that you're passionate about. And it doesn't really have to be related to the topic at all.
I know, as I was prepping, I was like, oh, what else do I want to talk about? Like, I really love talking about, embodiment. And I really love talking about movement and fitness and yoga and all of these things. And so I guess I would come back to say, a lot of times when we think about fitness and those fitness goals, like we think about very active things. And we've already talked a little bit about like the need to have balance and mental health and things like that. But I think that, a lot of people have this idea that like, okay, I'm going to get in shape, right? So I need to go for a run, or I need to, do, a lot of, heavy weightlifting, or like whatever kind of perceptions we have about what kinds of activities we need to do. But really, I think the more we have opportunities to be in our bodies and to do things that bring us joy. Like, I think that's so important to thinking about fitness and the fitness journey and wellness. So maybe that's gardening, right? Gardening is a very physical activity that also then connects you with the earth. I'm not a gardener myself, but I have friends who garden. But I think also there's this perception, like when it comes to yoga, a lot of people are like, and I was at that place once in my fitness journey as well, where I was just like, oh, yoga's just a bunch of stretching. Like, I know how to stretch. I can do that, right?
Me too.
But there's so many different kinds of yoga, and yoga can be a pretty intense workout. But yoga can also be a very restful activity that complements something that's more active. But again, there's like so many different kinds of yoga. And I think a lot of people just have a lot of misperceptions about yoga, or think that it's like a religion or a cult, or they think it's going to lower their metabolism, so they don't want to participate in yoga because that's going to mess with their weight loss goals. They think I'm not flexible, I can't do yoga, or all of those different kinds of reasons. But I think that yoga is worthwhile for a lot of different reasons. Like, again, as a complement to things that are more active. Like, I think if people who run all the time did yoga just as much, like, you're going to see a lot of benefits in their running activity as well as, in other areas of their lives. And that, again, yoga is so many different kinds of things that we can find a lot of different ways into fitness through, again, something that's more active or something that's more restful. But also in terms of strength, balance, flexibility, mind-body connection, all of these kinds of things. The mental health benefits of yoga, I think, are so important, and that I really encourage people to, explore what yoga has to offer, but also just thinking about like embodied movement and what that means, and how we can bring mindfulness into the exercises that we do, and how that can shift and improve, the benefits that we get from those activities as well.
Indeed, I agree. And I do feel like yoga has not always been something that is on top of my mind, because to me, yoga is something that is quite boring, because I'm someone who likes to move a lot. And when I tried yoga for the first, second, third time, it was more of the yoga that is more still, like where you like stay and keep your pose. And then the other day I tried yoga that is much more dynamic. And I found it a bit more myself, because it is also some parts of stretching as well, kind of like Pilates, but it's heavier because of these dynamic movements that you have to move up and down and do that repeatedly. And it is indeed, there are yoga for all people out there, because there's something that's more light and easy. There's something that's, harder and like more intermediate. And there's just something that's for expert level, where they can just like stand on their head or just do these different types of flexibility movements that just blows your mind, how they are able to do that with bones in their body. It looks like they're boneless. And I find that quite eye-opening after doing that class of just more of a dynamic yoga, because I forgot what the name actually is called. But something that's more dynamic and more, more movement.
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of times, and the same word can mean a lot of different things, like in a yoga class, but vinyasa yoga or ashtanga yoga tend to be pretty physical. Like there's a lot of yoga classes. I mean, I do yoga almost every day, and there's a lot of yoga classes that I just will not be able to do because they are very physical. You're doing a lot of chaturanga, I call them like yogi push-ups, right? You're up and you're down, and it's actually quite a workout. And so I think a lot of times people are drawn to that kind of yoga, right? Or they're scared away from that kind of yoga and think that that's what they're going to encounter. And I want to come back to something that you said, because I think it's really important. I'm going to tease you a little bit here, is that, you're like, I like to move, right? So I don't really think about yoga, right? Because I think about it just being like kind of slow and boring, right? And so I think that's, again, a common perception, and not an untrue perception, because yes, the yoga that I teach is, I call it, slow flow, is, matching our breath and our movement. And so like some of my students are just like, oh, that just moves way too slow and you talk too much. And I'm just like, fair enough. Yes, I'm moving pretty slow and I am talking a lot. But I think sometimes the things that we are like the things that we think that we're not going to enjoy, or maybe some of the things that we need in our, fitness regime, right? So like I like to move a lot. And so then having that slower, more restful activity to complement what moves us a lot, right, is good to pursue. And that's hard. And, I say that being pretty regimented in my routine of, like dance and yoga, and I don't like to run, and I probably wouldn't go try a run. So fair enough.
Because there is always an exercise for everyone, because I'm also like not into running as well. That's why initially I was very intimidated by it, because everyone says running is the fastest way to lose weight, and you have to run every morning for 10K, at least 10K steps, and like 6 kilometers. And for beginners, you're just like, whoa, that's a lot. That's a lot, because you have to run a lot to just achieve your goals. And thank you for your insight, Sarah. I found that quite eye-opening about yoga, and about all of our talks today about the social causes as well, and your practices and habits, especially reminding myself to take a moment to take a breather, because when you said that, I just noticed that, I am doing my short breaths right now because I'm quite nervous. So yeah, that's really great. Just like taking a step back and be more in tune with yourself. So thank you, Sarah, for joining us today. If our listeners want to find out more about you and what you do, where do you think can they go? Like your social media, or what can they search? What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. So I try to be active on both Facebook and Instagram. So I'm there with my name, Sarah Hentges, but also with the name of my business, which is the Spiral Goddess Collective. I have a Facebook group that's Yoga for Every Mind Body with Sarah Hentges, and also a Journey Dance Facebook group as well, Journey Dance with Sarah Hentges. I have my website for the spiralgoddesscollective.com, which has a lot of information about like trauma-informed approaches and the kind of social justice approach to fitness and yoga and dance and healing and transformation. So that can be found there. With questions, I can be contacted by the messaging on Facebook or Instagram or via email at thespiralgoddesscollective@gmail.com. I also have a new book that will be coming out in the new year, which I'm currently working on the edits and indexing for, and that is Demystifying American Yoga, Embodied Practices for Individual and Collective Transformation. So I'm both very nervous about that book coming out, but very excited as well.
Well, I too am excited for you, and we are going to put that on our show notes and description below. And thank you everyone for tuning in, and we'll catch you in the next episode.
You've been listening to the Self-Improvement Atlas, the Personal Science Insights podcast produced by LMSL, the Life Management Science Labs. For more episodes like this from 10 different life management perspectives, search LMSL on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts so you can get updated on everything we have to offer. We have a wide range of topics readily available for you to check out. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider rating our show, sharing it, and subscribing to our channel, as it helps us grow and bring you more quality resources. More of our work can be found on our website at pe.lmsl.net, where you can join our movement. I'm Marie Stella. Thanks for tuning in.